Welcome to the October 5th County Council meeting. Ms. Zirinsky, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Zembo, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Giovanni.
Here.
Mr. Gofredo.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Present.
Mr. Lott.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky. Here. All present.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 21st, 2023. Second.
Second.
Since there's no courtesy of the floor on my sheet,
All in favor?
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That happened, sorry.
Now, okay, we good now? Oh, boy. Is there anybody who would like to address council at this time with courtesy of the floor? If not, Mr. Executive, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start this evening with some very good news. Mr. Tolliver, would you please come up here? I think Mr. Tolliver has a story that he wants to share with County Council before we make the presentations that we're going to make.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Tolliver, and known to Northampton County family as Bernie. I'd like to recognize at this time the Honorable Judge Michael Corey, Jr., County Executive, members of County Council, Sheriff Richard Johnston, my wife Maria, and my family, and each and every one of you who are present this evening. And last but not least, I want to thank God for being present in this courthouse. And I thank you for the privilege of your time. On September 7th, here in the courthouse, I suffered a medical emergency that should have been a life-altering event for myself and my family. After the morning session of arraignments, my heart went into VFib, which resulted in cardiac arrest, which means my heart shut down, closed down, stopped functioning. But as God would have it, my fellow TIF staff and co-worker, Joe, who never stays between morning and afternoon sessions, he always leaves and goes, has his lunch and checks on his family. As God would have it, Joe was there. And Joe was there because Judge Corey had defrosted our refrigerator and instructed Joe that morning to wipe it out before he went home for lunch. Thank God that Judge Corey had some insight. The last thing I remember that day was giving Joe paper towels. I'm told that Joe said something to me and I didn't respond. So he turned around to look at me and I was slouched against the wall, unresponsive. Joe immediately ran to courtroom 2 for assistance. Deputy Ortega responded. He saw me in an unresponsive state and requested additional assistance and medical personnel to the scene. Deputy Ortega, Lieutenant Volpe, and Keener worked to relieve me for over 10 minutes. I had no pulse, no breath. I flatlined and I died on the floor in the chambers. Mr. County Executive, if it was not for Joe and the 3 deputies and Lieutenant Volpe, along with all the other deputies who assisted, I would not be here today. They knew that I had no pulse. They knew that I wasn't breathing, but they didn't give up. They wouldn't give up. They shocked me twice with the AED, which was unsuccessful, but they didn't give up. These 3 deputies performed numerous cycles of chest compressions with negative results for over 10 minutes. When emergency personnel arrived, they applied the Lucas device on me, which took over giving chest compressions. As a result of numerous cycles performed by the deputies, a pulse was detected. At St. Luke's, I'm called the Miracle Man by the doctors. They said I never should have survived the event, number 1. And number 2, if I was fortunate enough to survive, I should have brain damage. But due to the work, the quick, the smart actions of everyone involved, I'm here tonight. There is no damage to my brain. They kept applying the oxygen to my brain during the 10 minutes. I'm a living testimony to their training and to their commitment to serve. I am forever grateful to all of you who are involved. Also, thank you, Judge Corey and Jermaine Green, for staying with my wife and family at the hospital when it wasn't 110% clear if I was going to make it or not. I was transported to a hospital that could not handle the trauma that I sustained, so I was then transported again to another hospital, which was St. Luke's in Bethlehem. At St. Luke's, my family was told that it would be 48 hours before the brain scan could be taken to determine if I sustained damage to the brain. When I first came to, I was a person who did not know where he was. I didn't know and didn't recognize some of my family members. I asked the same questions over and over. I would then fall back to sleep for a period of time. Every time I would wake up, I would go through the same cycle over and over again. I would ask the same questions and give the same reactions. I was repeating myself. At this point, my family began the process of accepting the possibility that this could very well be my life moving forward. Just give me a second. I said I wasn't going to do this. I did wake up. Eventually, I did wake up and remembered some things of what had been said to me before I had slept. My short-term memory was coming back, and it was evident to all that I was regained, my memory was coming back, and it was evident to all. Hope was regained when I asked the question to my family, "Where's my car?" And I said to my wife, "Did you leave my car in the parking lot?" So everyone at that point began feeling better and saying, "Yeah, he's coming around." But I want to thank the judges. I had judges come to my bedside, Judge Sletfold, Judge Rossioli, the sheriff, Lieutenant Volpe, Deputy Ortega, and where's Amy Moss at? Amy Moss, thank you for being at the hospital with my family. You stayed in touch by calling every day for a status update and offering to assist in any way necessary. My son, did he get here yet, Joey? There he is. My son and his wife, my grandkids, stand up so everybody can see you, please, for a second. his wife Allison, my 2 grandchildren, my daughter Taisha and her husband. You stand up. My kids, they took control, they stepped up and they took control and they assisted my wife with life decisions that had to be made. And I want to say thank you. They really took control of speaking with the doctors and so forth. Thank you very much. You can sit down. Yeah, always a dad. And finally, I want to thank the entire county family, Northampton, for all the visits, the texts, the cards, the phone calls, the well wishes, the love and support you have shown me. I am, and I say we are, my family, are forever grateful. Thank you very much.
I have a 2-page memo from Sheriff Johnston outlining the commendable acts of September 7th, 2023, which I will not read to council, but can share it at council's request. At this time, I'd ask Sheriff Johnston and Judge Corey to come up and help us honor those brave deputies and sergeants and lieutenants that Bernie just talked about. Come up. Judge, would you come up? Do you want to say anything, Judge? Are you good? Okay. Yusef Melham. On up, Joe. Thank you so much. Come right in. I want to take your picture. Hold you. Hope you get that. Lieutenant George Volpe. So you're hiding out there. Come on up there, Lieutenant. Thank you. You gotta get your picture. You gotta get your picture. Judge wants to shoot. Thank you. Thanks. Lieutenant Justin Wachowski. Another one hiding back there. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Sergeant James Riley. Here you go, Sergeant. Sergeant Ethan Seagraves. Sergeant Michael Weston. Deputy Louis Adamus. Where's Louis? Is Louis here? No. You'll have to give that to him. Okay. Deputy Jesus Ortega.
one who's delivering, okay. You're like, whoa, what's going on?
Neighbors complaining?
Your grim reaper.
Carol Dietrich Safair. Council, I appreciate your indulgence. Sheriff, do you want to say anything? Or you?
No, I
I
appreciate.
guess he does. No, I'll have something to say.
No, I appreciate all the money that's afforded us for training for a case like this. But thank you.
And that concludes that, I think, very profound portion of the executive's report. 27,004 is the number of mail-in ballots that have been mailed thus far to voters who have requested their mail-in ballots. All of our drop boxes are out and are now available for use. That is our update on the election. I have an update on the Conservation District. We,
You want to hold off a second because we got a lot of folks.
sure, absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Best of health, sir. Okay, Mr. McClure.
Thank you. So we received, as we do, because, as you know, in our organizational chart, the Conservation District comes, I'll hold on. Thank you, Sue. As you know, the Conservation District comes under the jurisdiction of the Department of Administration. The Director of Administration, as you know, is Mr. Dertinger. So we get the agendas for the Conservation District Board. And in red, the agenda item number 1 is resolution to amend county MOU to allow district to have grant funds deposited in their accounts. So this is before any meeting takes place, a meeting that we were endeavoring to schedule, but there it is. And it's there because they violated the Sunshine Act the first time they did it. So part of a remedy to a violation of the Sunshine Act is do it over again the right way. And so it appears that that's what they're going to do. So without an agreed upon amendment at arm's length with the people they have a contract with, they are once again going to breach the contract they have with Northampton County, which is unacceptable to this administration. We do not let anybody breach contracts with us. So there's that. Then Mr. Dertinger received an email this week from District Manager Dion Campbell indicating that he has been notified that all the funds that the state transfers to the county per the MOU will now be transferred to the Conservation District, despite the fact that we have a contract that says that those funds come to the county. So our agreement has been breached. The state is now circumventing our financial controls. And why is this important? So our financial controls are very stringent. And we do not accept the responsibility, because remember, they'll be on our books. They'll be on our books. We do not accept the audit responsibility of money that we never control. We will never control that money, yet we will be responsible to your auditor for however that gets handled. That's unacceptable to the county. Therefore, today, we inform the Conservation District that they have their 90-day notice and that they can begin the process of becoming fully independent. It seemed to me that that's their desire. These aggressive and unlawful actions demonstrate to me that that's what they want to do. I will tell you, though, that we're giving them more than 90 days. In our letter, we indicate that the agreement can be extended to December 31st, 2024. So they will have 15 months to get themselves right. So, I mean, you heard the folks from DEP say they've seen it done as little as 90 days. We won't do that to them. We're going to give them 15 full months to achieve their independence. Yes?
Questions?
Well, I don't know if it's a question for you, but I'm just very concerned with the employees. You know, how their benefits work, how that's all going to work, but I guess that's not a question for us.
Well, so the employees who are vested with us, you know, they're vested with us. When they hit 55 in the years or 60 in the years, they'll get what they're entitled to. The employees who aren't vested, that will be up to Mr. Mauser and Mr. Kiefer and the other members of the board who desire independence to figure out how those people will have a pension. Will it be a 401K? What will it be?
So just.
All those details aren't worked out, but that's generally.
So they will not be employees of ours anymore. They will not get the benefits that our
Correct.
employees got. So their pension will end, you know, if they're vested,
Yes.
they're vested, but they will not continue to grow. They will have to start their own.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. That
Yep.
doesn't sound so good for employees, but we'll see how this shakes out.
I don't think Mr. Mauser and Mr. Kiefer considered the employees.
Did they vote to go
Mr.
independent?
Folks, you need to be recognized, okay? Mr. Rinsky was next.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the answer to that is no, Mr. Gafredo.
Why did the state allow the MOU to have supremacy over or supersede the contract that we had?
It is, well, I have this third hand, that they received advice from DEP council that if the board, Conservation District Board, votes to have the money transferred to it directly, and it has an EIN and it has accounts, that's what they should do.
Oh, so the DEP.
Yeah, so the
Stepped in.
Yeah, the DEP,
So the
well, the DEP's been very helpful in helping the Conservation District become fully independent, and we will too.
What
We'll
does,
be very helpful too.
what does that mean for the relationship between the county and the Conservation District then?
There won't be one after 2024.
So is there, so you give them 90 days or more, you're saying?
Well, we're giving them
December
15 months,
Till
yep.
2024.
Right.
In that time period, if they decide that this was not a great idea, can they say, you know what? We decided that this was not the way that we would like to, this is not the direction.
That's a
we would like to-"
hypothetical I'm not going to entertain.
Okay. I just wanted to know if they had a way out.
I don't know how you deal with people who don't keep their word.
Mr. Gafredo?
Did the Conservation District vote to go independent?
No, to my knowledge.
Did they put any money in that account that they set up?
Not yet.
No?
But the state has indicated that that's where the money is going to be transferred. And it's imminent. It's going to happen soon.
Set up a bank account.
Yes, and got the requisite EIN and other things they needed.
Does it say anywhere in that MOU that the directors of the Conservation District and this council body has the authority to amend the MOU at any point in time during that 5-year contract? Does it say verbatim, word for word, just what I said?
Agreement, you have to have an agreement, both parties have
an
to
agreement.
agree.
The MOU is there. It's a 5-year agreement. It's
Yes.
signed. It's in place. And we
Yes.
have the right. And the
No, an amendment would need to be agreed to by both parties.
Yes.
And it is the executive that is tasked under our law with doing contract negotiations. Under our
Contracts in place, would you-
Under our home, well, you're talking now about the amendment, correct?
I am.
Okay,
It's an amendment.
So we can amend the existing MOU.
That's not the contract.
we could, yes.
Okay. That's, so.
Yes,
when they
I
came
could,
here-
the executive could negotiate an amendment to the MOU.
Right.
No, I'm saying the council.
No.
Their board, yes, that's what it says. Read 332.
Look, it's
In
not,
that
it's
MOU.
not.
I think you made a big
When-
mistake, because I think we have a meeting set up for next Tuesday to discuss just this. Do we not?
Well, yes, but.
And now we're getting bombarded and saying,
Well,
guess
what- no,
what, we
what-
don't want to
what-
discuss it, we're
what-
going to go independent.
what-
I think it was immature, and I think it doesn't help the Conservation District employees or the Conservation District at all. So I think it was a big mistake. I think there should have been dialogue, conversation, and I'm a little disappointed.
Well, you should be disappointed with an entity that you should be disappointed with an entity that has a contract with you that's breaching its
Mr. McClure, these aren't
contract.
lawyers, okay? There's farmers there, there's people there that are Conservation District employees, and they've come to us and said, hey, things aren't working out best, what can we do?
You mean,
That's what they did. They came here a couple times, took time out of their nights to come explain to us why they don't think things are going well. And maybe they don't understand the accounting that goes into this. But that doesn't mean, hey, you know what, you don't like what we're doing, screw off. That's basically what just happened.
Well,
I think it's immature.
those aren't the words,
Thank you.
those aren't the words I used, and I appreciate your lecture on maturity.
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Executive, I'm just curious.
Sure.
I haven't followed this as closely probably as I should. But you mentioned, I agree, the amendment part that you did. And you said that the state has already, I apologize. You said that the state has already decided, but I mean, one question I have up front is, couldn't we, maybe it's fruitless, but if we didn't agree and we said we feel the law, we could fight that if we wanted to in court? Couldn't we?
Well, you could. I don't know why you would.
Well, I mean, I'm saying it because we brought up, and
If you have a board, let me try and answer your question. If you have a board that wants that money transferred directly to it, not to the county, as per the MOU.
yeah.
And the state saying, well, we have advice from our council that says if the local conservation district board says to transfer it to them, that's where we should transfer it to. I'm not sure what the argument is.
Well, and somebody can tell me this. How are the directors themselves appointed? Is it by the body?
So in our system, our home rule system, the county executive forwards to county council for consideration the board members.
I mean, the top.
However, regulations dictate how those board members are brought to us. So there are various factors that need to be, like there needs to be someone who is actively engaged in farming. And we don't pick that. There's a specific group in the regulation that is determined to pick that, and I don't know all of those off the top of my head, but we have one or two maybe discretionary ones. Is that right, Charles? Yes. One or two?
I guess what I'm asking is, I've sat on boards and I was on farmland preservation when it was early on. But how many members are there of the conservation?
How many? There's a lot. Board? Well, I have it in front of me.
I mean, I'm sorry, I know these are basic, but I'm trying to figure something out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 members who participated in the last meeting. Kiefer, Geiger, Mauser, DeFebo, and Blanchfield. And let's see, is anybody absent?
Well, you know what, it's,
Linda's going to look it up.
Mr. Executive, you don't even, I guess what I'm asking is, do all the board members have to agree if they want to make a move like this?
They voted on it.
They all voted?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but a majority of the quorum present
Okay.
voted in favor of it.
And I want to lean in a little bit on what Mr. Gilfredo said. I'm just curious, whether I like what they're doing or not, I don't think it's going to matter to anybody involved. And I am concerned, though, I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. I mean, we should be involved. If we're being audited, we need to have some controls. But I do believe, like was brought up, that I'm concerned about the employees, and I'm wondering over the course of the next 15 months, and I know you said before you won't speculate on things, but certainly the concept of coming to a negotiated idea on how to treat employees that may be grandfathering or something, the administration is open to at least discussing with these people?
So there are certain legacy costs that we'll have to maintain.
Yes.
Let's suppose that one or two of them are actually eligible for retiree health care. I don't know that for a fact. They would still be eligible when they hit the criteria, but Mr. Heckman, independence is independence. And, we've heard from them, we've heard from Mr. Mauser and Mr.
Yeah.
Kiefer,
Yeah.
they're not paid enough. Well, maybe they'll pay more. And maybe their benefits will be even better than the benefits that the county offers. As a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
How many employees do they have that are now county employees?
9,
9 are county employees?
yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, and this is where I'm having a tough time. I mean, I could yell, "You're at fault." I could yell, "They're at fault." They're
Right.
Mauser and the guy.
Yep.
I truly am concerned about these 9 people. And whoever we yell at or don't yell at isn't going to mean diddly to them
Right.
if this thing goes through. And I guess I'm just trying, I don't want to see them become collateral damage for actions may not have been prudent. And I'm not, this isn't an assault on your position.
I don't feel assaulted.
And it's not an assault on Mauser's position. I haven't been in the rooms when these things went on. But I hope, and this is just me saying I hope we often talk about employees, and we all take a position on how we love the employees. I don't want to see these 9 people become hostages to anything or anybody. And I don't know if it's possible to save them in any way from, let's say, a bad decision on the part of somebody or obstinance or whatever. But that's just my hope I hold out going forward. And I heard what you said. If this is what they do, we're done. And you know what? To the board members, so be it, if you guys want to do that. But I am concerned about the employees.
I wish that their board showed as much concern about that as you do. And I think they're not worried about it because I think they think they can pay more and maybe they can. And I doubt it. I think that they're going to find out it isn't, the financial picture won't be what they think it will be, what they hope it'll be. But maybe if you're one of the vested employees, you'll make a new salary. There'll be a new type of retirement, and not only will you have your county pension, but maybe you'll have some kind of 401k to go on top of your county. You could actually be better off. And the other folks are 1 or 2 years in, and they're not vested, and they're not making very much money, and it's.
Mr. McClure, you don't want me to go off on my tirade on 401ks.
No, listen,
pension
hey,
plans.
you know what, I'm hearing, listen, Mr. Heckman, I'm old school. I'm hearing all the time, even coming this way, that, people don't want benefits anymore, and, I'm not gonna cut benefits.
I hear you. It's a new world.
Yeah.
Mr. Cusack, did you have a question? No. Okay. I thought you.
He just looked inquisitive.
Because they were both hands up.
He had his glasses on, he looked inquisitive.
Mr. Lott.
He's always inquisitive.
Yeah, people don't, I keep hearing people don't, value their benefits. Take their benefits away. Cut their pension back. You will see 90% of employees at our meeting. So pension, benefits are very important when they're being taken away from you. That's when people realize it. But on a whole nother note, I listened to that meeting, and we as council and a county were given 2 ultimatums by the conservation group, and that was, we either control our own money, this is what we were told, we control our own money, or we want to be independent. That was our options that were given to us. We can't we can't let them hold their money and us audit them. So we have to let them, we don't have much of a choice. Mr. Brown, I thought, brought up a very good point at that meeting, and he asked them to go back and look at the numbers and really see if they could be independent. I thought that was going to put a stop, let them think about it, kind of what Mr. Grafredo, let's, step back. But they didn't. They went and voted. So they went and voted to push this thing forward.
I don't think they voted yet.
No, they voted to take the money. Well, illegally. So they violated, so the first time the first time they voted, they did vote on receiving the money directly from the state, creating their own bank accounts. Those were votes taken previously, getting their own EIN number, and then they voted in violation of the Sunshine Act to receive this money. It's now back on their agenda, properly advertised, and my suspicion is they're doing it over so that they can have a lawful resolution.
Okay, so thank you. At
What?
this point, they didn't take.
Yeah, and they're already taking the money.
All right, so if they're moving forward, I see no option, we don't have an option as a county. We can't go with they take the money and we're responsible for them. So if that's the way they're moving forward, I don't see where we really have much of a choice, but I mean, I think it's great that the county's gonna give them 15 months. I would have loved them to come back, and maybe that's what they're gonna do. Maybe they're gonna come back and they say, hey, we looked at this thing, as asked by Mr. Brown at the last meeting, and we don't think independence is the way to work. So we really need to figure out how we can flow better. But, I'm not hearing that if they're putting it on their agenda to vote again. They didn't. I mean, they did. They put it on the vendor.
And they're already taking, the money is already coming in.
So
It's already been diverted.
I think that's they made the decision. We didn't. Thank you.
Wow.
Mr. Rinsky, before I go back to Mr. Alfredo?
Yeah, I just have a question of whether any future board would be beholden to the choices of their current boards, such that, like, in our council, no council is bound to the decisions of a previous council.
Yeah, I think this kind of entity, though, is probably analogous to a tanker at sea. It's going to.
Like, once it happens.
Once it starts turning, you can't stop it.
Yeah, because I'm concerned that this is having.
Don't be. Mr. Mauser, and Mr.
Longitudinal-
Kiefer have this. They have it. They know what they're going to do. I'm not worried at all.
this is
And we're going to help them
serious
transition over the next 15 months. And we will be as cooperative as possible. That is my promise to you. We will cooperate.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Before I go to Mr. Alfredo, are you aware if they have any kind of insurance or any other policy, anything going on that you're aware of as of now? Or are they just going blindly?
Well, they'll have 15 months to figure all of that out. So that's a good question. They are in our proposed 2024 budget. So they will be under your umbrella, under your protection until December 31st, 2024.
Mr. Alfredo?
I just want to clarify, Mr. Lott, I don't believe they had any vote since they met here. The last correspondence we had was we were going to be meeting with the administration on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, to discuss going forward. And I asked Mr. McClure when I first asked, did they receive any money in that account? And you said, no, they didn't. And that was, to my knowledge, they haven't received a dime because we didn't amend the MOU. They set it up on the pretense of us amending the MOU that they'd be able to receive funds first and reimburse the county.
Okay, so let me just read the email. This is from Sherry Law, Conservation Program Specialist, Dirt Gravel and Low Volume Roads Program, to Ken Joseph Grandini, Northampton 5-year agreement, switched to new vendor ID. So this is the state talking to each other. Hi, Ken, Northampton CCD's 5-year agreement has been updated to their new vendor ID. If you haven't updated their vendor ID, BPN, and address in the GIS, go ahead and do that. Let me know if you need anything else. So then.
Is that money in their account? That's my only question.
So then.
Honestly.
Well, let me.
Last thing he told us. It's going to be directed as we're sitting here now. They may not have gotten it yet, but it's coming.
So this is the letter from Mr. Campbell to Mr. Turner.
Honestly, I feel like that's where, did they do something wrong? Did they follow procedural misorder? That's what they were finding out when they were here last. We said, listen, you can't do anything to amend the MOU. We had a lengthy discussion. These people aren't lawyers. They don't understand this stuff. And by all means, that was what this meeting on Tuesday was supposed to be for. So to say that this is prudent, I would.
You know,
At this point right now, we're beating our heads against the wall with this scenario, because until
Yeah.
let the executive handle this and get back to us, because at this point right now, there's too many questions at this point. I think we are not going to get any answers. We can go back and forth, argue, we need to let this go. In the next meeting, let's get an update, please.
Sure. That concludes my report.
All right. Does that work for everybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Old business. Yes, Ms. Varga-Hefner.
Prior to old business, I'd like to request a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing some litigation.
Okay.
Okay. It is, is there a second?
I'll second. Let's go.
Okay. It's 7:13. We're going into executive session.
They were good enough for the wedding, they're good enough for county council. Are those from Amazon? Yeah, $34, man. What? He's making fun because they didn't like the transfer.
But we're not taking it tomorrow.
Did you see the wedding pictures? I talked to Jim, I don't.
I told Rich not to do anything. I need to talk to Maria. That's another one you were wearing that night.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Can you go somewhere? You share with me. No. Shit on me. Hey, listen, I'm gonna just don't you. I know. Did you see the picture? Yeah. From the wedding? Try. I really good. Oh my god, it's pink. Come on. It's a wedding I was at. It's Mikey Boucher's wedding. Little Mikey got married. Mimi's son. Yeah, Mimi's son. Old enough to get married. He was a ring bearer at the wedding.
Library.
26? He's right.
Cousin is the Riley.
He got married. What was that? Robin Bartlett's was just even in his device, things that he was actually acquiring my TV show. So I that would be a lie. That would buy me a lot of
Pretty soon you're gonna have like
She watches from home.
I'm not here a lot.
Hey, my response is good. Peter Martin. I don't look. They don't have the power to do it. Of course you did. Such a joke. She wrote, "Don't worry, if Indianapolis comes after you."
I have this one too, and I'm speaking. There's no limit,
Absolutely. They were there.
All right.
Dimension to it. Yeah, it's very interesting. But Tiffany made it very clear that we can get back to you want to be my friend, that's so cool. She also like really good friends, and she have twins. Get there. But before we must travel soon as to be. Yes.
Okay, I'll email Rebecca.
You have it?
I don't. I think she got it directly from the sheriff.
I have it.
Okay, I'll just scan him a copy.
Let's read it, make sure it's not.
Well, it is pretty detailed.
That's not.
Here it is.
It's just a report and my own interpretation.
I don't think it was an issue tonight.
Right?
Thank you, yep.
By the way, it was pretty much in the report.
Yeah, oh, that's why you have to read it, he said it. Thank you.
I'm standing there looking at him going, where's he coming from? He came from PennDOT. Oh, really? He used to be the head purchaser. You might be he was the head purchaser and alcohol buyer. No. No, I don't understand. He left in the transfer stands. Yeah. Alcohol, PennDOT. What do you think they do with that transportation money? We drive on our roads to make sure they're perfect for drug. Pothole, 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 pothole. Like Pete Martin used to say, you think these are cufflinks, these are curb feelers. Sorry. Oh, I know.
May I approach?
Here's the notice.
Okay, no,
Don't want to see that.
okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Don't blame them, cake jobs. That's the biggest problem. Yeah. Yeah, I think the number 7 is in my head, but I wasn't sure. 7, 9. I think we only get one discretionary program. I think it's only one. Who, Ted? Oh, he is? What's that? Buckus. Oh, because it's like a fee schedule. What about squeeze a little extra? I bet we're not. I bet, right, but the locals. Maximums and minimums. The locals.
Service, I think that went well. No, I'm just gonna.
Oh, it did.
Bernie said he's only gonna speak for 5 minutes.
Oh, listen, I would have let him speak all night long. He's been a county council meeting where he can speak. It's amazing. It's amazing. Because Jim has got stuff he's got to do. Stuff's happening. Yeah. You want yours picked? I'll take it. We'll take it. We'll get you guys. Yeah, it probably don't look like it.
Yeah, but it's perfect.
I don't even know.
And my brother taking his 2 kids, and my old roommate's taking his 2 kids, and so
I can do that.
cheap tickets won't be crazy. First game for the kids. This October, hopefully I just bring them.
Yeah. Not be cheap.
Let my wife do it. I had to tell you the things.
Oh, two's blessed. We're gonna get down. We're gonna sleep over outside. Stay at college Friday night. Get in early.
That's really what it is, cheap and time. I don't want to
So we'll
spend
get in,
money.
go downtown, kind of like maybe take the bus ride around campus. Get back, tailgate. By that time, my brother and stuff should be there.
Or do what I did with the first one, have Sandy.
Kings at 3:30. Leave like mid third quarter. Get home by like 10.
You might be able to shit.
Sport. But I want to at least get through halftime. And
Yeah.
then leave like after the band. And
First of all, I never asked her.
that's yeah. It might be, unless it's like 4.
But even the
something,
little
but
bit
then
I asked her.
That's part of the reason, so
It depends on my court schedule. Yeah, so I'll probably be at my office. I'm gonna go back there.
I have to put like 7 something. high school football game, I get it. You know what I mean?
It's just, yeah, you do like a park the first place here.
It's like a track, but even then, do you, because you get, you know what, screw some people like.
These are better popcorn, so I threw it in the microwave.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I, you know.
And then just clock it. It doesn't matter.
Well, that might got very close to that.
They did. We did put the nurse, we did put the front line. I'm not saying all this help.
By the time I get out, no, I think they're not, but it's
They're not as, they lost, but Whitehall is really strong. They're like, oh,
hungry, I gotta eat something.
oh,
that's good, yeah,
They were
yeah. Yeah.
in the grass field. I hate that stadium.
It's never.
I used to hate, yeah. I used to hate Connie.
Yeah, but now.
I hate the part. I only hated Connie.
Yeah, yeah, those are good too, yeah.
I never thought.
I just loved the things I did.
I don't know, car tables usually didn't have any.
You saw about the stem?
They didn't have neon signs.
Wait, over here? Oh, yeah, no, I like
wasn't
that.
very close.
Let's see what we want here.
No, it's not.
Used to park it. Like at Louisville Park. He was one of our.
No, we worked at Iron Hicks.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he was one of the.
Prior.
I'm assuming it's gonna be down here.
Oh, yeah. Well, he lived there, didn't he?
Richmond and then stay overnight and eat certain.
My phone blew up Thursday.
Decent meal then. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he was sick for a while.
Yeah, a long time. He had the wrong, he was a head coach, that's how it felt.
Yeah, I was there.
He won the only two state championships.
I dived in there recently.
He won the state
But
championship?
They don't, Peabody doesn't have station. They have those sections.
Oh, yeah. He won like two or three.
when she was little, we didn't care for breakfast and all that, and then as she got older, we had a friend, and then they were old enough to go to the park, and my husband had to go down to the college.
Yeah, he went lunch.
So they go on the rides. But yeah, I like the hotel, it's been nice.
Smartest football man I've been. That guy knew football.
Did he play with Bobby Bowden
How much?
No,
at Syracuse?
no, he played with Ernie Davis.
Ernie Davis, that's right.
Well, from there. They have one of those, you know, it's in Pittsburgh, it's
He
all.
graduated in '59.
Have one.
He won his national title.
Yeah.
Now, every time I drive my daughter from Pittsburgh, once in a while. I'm older than parents, but I fries.
I'm gonna walk out the door. So I got to play with, this is the same play with Ernie Davis.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you, I got some, I can hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
People don't realize who's there standing around.
No,
You
no.
know, talk about it.
Try, it's just.
Playing the park, you just fuck, you don't win, you're wrong. Chicken farm, with dirt.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I got so sick on that field one day, two goals.
That's the problem.
I think even if they put turf in like
Right.
a couple of years ago in Manhattan, they planted grass on the field because they're trying to like build it up. They planted shade grass on a field in the sun. By the end of the year, it was done. They actually, Emmaus, who could host district playoff games, couldn't host the games because the field was even on the state, so they had to play at neutral sites. They ended up playing one game at BASD, and I think they played the district championship that year at Allen.
I show my, I've never played on turf, even in college, I didn't play on turf, it's all grass fields.
Uh-huh.
I never, I mean, I walked on some field with turf and that.
You should see the
I think
new
the rotisserie chicken is like really,
so nice. It's like
no,
walking
I
on
put stuff for like
it's
the
like
grill
walking
and
on a grass
my
field.
bagels almost like,
It's unbelievable. I've never been on a.
yeah, I like it.
I went down for my recruiting trip to
But, you
Temple.
know, I get.
You walk around the vet, that turf.
Then I get the big thing.
It was literally, you were walking on,
It's just easier.
like, after church to see it,
From there and home.
Kmart, and there was like a 2-inch cushion underneath it, and it wasn't level, you'd walk on, you'd feel like the.
The magnets
Yeah,
and
you
stuff,
feel the
yeah.
dents in it and everything, like they planned this thing, yeah.
Running errands, I mean,
And it was
anyway,
set up
it's
for
like,
baseball,
I don't feel like going there. I'm like, hardly ever go out there,
tobacco spit stains on it.
you know. I was there
Spit down the outfield and everything. No way. Yeah, nowadays it's totally different. We went to Nebraska for the Penn State game. Out in Nebraska, I thought that field was grass, so I moved to the city there. And I said, that field looks amazing. They said, that grass is, and that's at me. Like, yeah, it's fake. That's not fake. It's fake. Yeah. That looks, I mean, that looks real.
I mean, you can't really question, like Boise State has that Lutheran.
Yeah.
They were gonna put, they were gonna put, they were talking about doing turf at Southern Leon. And then they ended up opting for grass because they might not be able to play other high school sanctioned sports on the field.
I must have stood there.
Oh, look at this.
Hi, hey.
My knees appreciate it.
I know you got it. Too bad I couldn't stretch the concussion protocol another week. I should say on a.
All right, let's
the
go.
NFL, I should have said, hey, keep me out of concussion. 2 weeks. I wasn't.
It's 7:31. We discussed possible litigation and no action was taken. We'll move on from that point to old business. Public hearing on ordinance entitled, an ordinance by Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Eastern Pennsylvania, to lease a certain portion of property located at 428 Gaffney Hill Road, City of Easton, Northampton County, Pennsylvania. Ms. Zirinsky and Mr. Cusack introduced the ordinance. Is there any questions from the public? If not, discussion by council. Mr. Cusack.
Mr. President, the folks on Gaffney Hill Road would be surprised to learn that they live in the city of Easton. The fact of the matter is that this property is located in Williams Township. So I'm going to make an amendment that we strike City of Easton from the title of this ordinance and replace it with Williams Township. And that at the bottom of the page in the now therefore paragraph, that we strike the City of Easton and replace it with Williams Township.
I second.
There you go.
The question is, how does this affect the agreement?
Pardon me?
Does this affect the agreement by changing it?
It shouldn't.
If it's in the agreement,
If it's in the agreement,
I don't know, does the agreement say City of Easton?
No, we're only approving the ordinance. The agreement, we had nothing to do. But it's attached.
yes.
But he's making a change that it's a city building.
It's a Williams Township. Yes, you can.
When the concerns were expressed at the last meeting, I went on to the county website and sent a memorandum, and this map block and lot number is in Williams Township.
Sure is.
Okay. It was seconded, we have to vote on it.
You have to vote on the amendment.
Yes, we're going to vote on the amendment.
Who seconded?
There we go. We're good.
Ready? Go ahead, Ms. Emba.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman? Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
The motion passes by a vote of 9-0.
Now we vote on the ordinance as amended. Any discussion as the changes we made? No? Whenever you're ready, Ms. Emba.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Public hearing of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of Northampton County, Pennsylvania, providing for a real estate tax credit for certain active Northampton County volunteer firefighters, volunteer EMS personnel residing in Northampton County. Ms. Varyu Hefner and Ms. Zirinsky introduced this ordinance. Any discussion from the public?
Apparently, we have a discussion.
Yes, Mr. McClure.
Thank you. So I think this idea comes from the best possible place. I think, the Commonwealth and all of our counties and municipalities are desperate to staunch the exodus of EMT and volunteer firefighters from our volunteer companies. So I think it comes from the best place. And as you know, in Northampton County, since 2018, we've funded police, fire, and EMS agencies all across Northampton County to the tune of $2,677,661. And these were both the so-called professional services, Bethlehem Fire, Easton Fire, Wilson Fire, as well as all of our volunteer departments, including hundreds of thousands of dollars into the slate belt to help support those volunteer systems. So my purpose for speaking to you here tonight is not that I think this comes from a bad place, because I don't. I think it comes from a very good place. I think the enabling statute passed by the legislature also was well-intentioned, trying to do something good to stop the bleeding, if you will. But unfortunately, the ordinance, I think the enabling statute and the ordinance as drafted violates Pennsylvania's Constitution's uniformity clause. And what the uniformity clause roughly requires is that everyone is taxed the same in similar categories. And what this particular ordinance would do would be tax people in the same class differently. For example, if I'm reading the ordinance correctly, someone who works for a nonprofit would be eligible, but someone who works for a municipality would not. So if you work for a nonprofit ambulance service, but you're not a volunteer, that's your paid job, you would be eligible. But someone who worked for the city of Bethlehem as a paid EMT would not be eligible. And I think in that way, it would violate, just one way, it would violate the uniformity clause. There are many other ways that it would violate the uniformity clause, but I wanted to keep my remarks germane to the ordinance that's before us tonight. Another thing that I found potentially very problematic is in the ordinance, and I'm sure that this is just part of the model ordinance, because most of our counties are the old commissioner system. So in it, it has a requirement that the agencies who are eligible and keeping their eligibility lists are required to audit and report that to the Board of Commissioners. Well, in our home rule system, the administration is responsible for the implementation of taxes, the collection thereof, and the compliance with them. So that part of the ordinance would be violative of our home rule charter, and I think that's an easy fix. I think you could strip that out. But I think it's problematic enough from the constitutionality of it. And I think, we have professional services in Bethlehem, fire services and EMS services, and they will not be eligible for this. We have professional fire service in Wilson. They will not be eligible for this. The professional fire service in Easton, they will not be eligible for this. I think it's fundamentally unfair that a third of our county is served by these departments, and these folks won't be able to participate. And, historically speaking, taxation is used as an incentive to do something like work, right? So you work, you get a tax break for something, not to volunteer. Again, it is, I think, a very well-meaning piece of legislation, but I think it's deeply defective. And I think more analysis needs to be done as well. How much will this cost the Treasury? How many people does it apply to? Has anyone asked that question? Do we know the answer to that? So that's, I think, before you would enact an ordinance like this, which I wouldn't recommend because I think it's legally defective. But even if you disagreed with me about that, I think that we need to know how many people does this affect, what would it cost the Treasury, and I think that's a minimum good government thing to do. Thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else in the public? Council's discussion.
Can we hear from our solicitor commenting on what Mr. McClure just said?
As a result of the concerns expressed at the last meeting, I forwarded a memo, and I looked at the enabling statute, and I have been requested to prepare this ordinance, and I believe that it would stand legal challenge.
So you believe that it doesn't violate the uniformity clause?
Yes, we can have differences of opinion. I don't talk in absolutes. Could it be subject to a challenge? And would it have a chance to be overturned? And would it have a chance to be sustained? The answer to that is yes. And anyone that tells you it's a dead ringer, it violates, it won't be effective, is making an educated guess. Because there's litigation that have facts, evaluation, law, and a decision. Is it subject to attack? The answer is yes.
Right, because I think it was Mr. Brown who brought up the idea that it opens door to other volunteers being somehow challenging this so that they would be able to get it. And I don't think that that's what the nature of this is.
I don't want to breach any conversations that I've had with members of council. However, there was a discussion with me concerning other classes, such as disabled veterans, other types of people that may qualify for a tax credit that council may feel is appropriate. This is limited to the writing of volunteer firefighters and EMS people.
So you think in the future there could be other classes that could also be added to that tax credit, potentially? Like,
A further council could come up with something else. That's correct. Thank you.
but that's not yeah, okay, I hear you.
Are you finished? Ms. Goffredo?
I don't believe I can vote on this. I think we made that clear when it was introduced, but to at least give some, ease your concerns about a couple things. I think it's pretty specifically identified as, in the ordinance, individual is a volunteer. So if you're working for a nonprofit EMS service, if you're getting paid, you're not a volunteer. As far as the Pennsylvania constitutional violation, the solicitor is obviously much more versed in the law than I am, but I believe when we had like the child tax credit, a tax credit being basically dependent on whether or not you have a child during the pandemic, I can't imagine that being any different than this situation where it's taking a class of people, and maybe I'm wrong about that, Mr. Spadoni, but at the end of the day, we had a man come up here and basically talk about how his life was saved by people that were on the spot.
Yeah.
I've been there where we were there in time, and I've been there where there weren't people up or there was nobody around, people were at work, nobody got there in time, and people died. There are not a lot of volunteers doing this work because it's dangerous, it's hard, it's all hours of the night, day, and it's always happening. And nobody talks about it, nobody thanks them. They do it not because, obviously there's no money involved. They do it because they see it as a good service and there's a camaraderie that comes along with it, but there's very few things that make people, there's not a lot of selling points.
Right.
I think this is a fantastic idea. If it's legal, like Mr. Spadoni said, we could argue till night about whether it's legal or not. Do I think it'll make a difference? Do I think it'll show appreciation? I do. So I would love to see this supported, although I can't support it personally.
Mr. Heckman?
Well, this is Ms. Hefner's ordinance. I'd like to hear her thoughts. I went back and watched the movie. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend due to health concerns. But I did go back and watch it and review it, and I wonder if you'd opine, on your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts are that I spoke to Mr. Spadoni when it was presented to me. I shared it with him. I also discussed it with CCAP lawyers as well, because I know that other counties have done it. So I had a question about how does it play for us in a home rule county as opposed to a 3-commissioner model, and I think we were able to hammer some of that out. As far as the verbiage, I'm trying to find what Mr. McClure was referring to, because,
Section 9.
okay, because in section
The last
7, where it
sentence.
discusses how you would submit or discern who would be eligible for this, it's stated it would be to the county and not specifically council. So the membership log shall be required under periodic review. If we need to amend that to a designee, I don't mind changing that language.
Lori, I think he's talking about, in section 9, it says Northampton County Board of Commissioners,
Right.
and we're actually county council.
So we can, I'm happy to entertain a motion to amend that to be specific.
May I make one?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll make a motion at this time to amend Section 9 to strike Board of Commissioners and replace it with Department of Fiscal Affairs.
Because that's, and I second that. Am I allowed to second an amendment on my own? Yeah, I second that. Because the intention was always to give the records to them as vetted by the chiefs, and then they would have to make the corrections. It was never meant to come to us.
Department of Fiscal Affairs.
Right.
Do I stop, I'll stop my comments so we could vote on the amendment, or can I?
Discussion on it.
We're still in discussion.
Do we need to look at the verbiage of nonprofit EMS? Does that need, is that creating more confusion by stating the fact that it's a nonprofit entity? Do we just say volunteer?
It says,
It says volunteer below that, I see that,
yeah.
which that makes it, it seems
The
like it
active
clears that
volunteers,
confusion.
fire company chief, or nonprofit EMS agency management must certify. Okay, so there's a definition here.
I have to chime in at this point, because I don't know if I'm eligible to vote for this, because I work for an EMS.
But you're paid.
Yes.
So paid people are not eligible for this.
All your local EMS ambulances are all paid.
I can't think of a volunteer ambulance or don't. Certain fire departments do have ambulance trucks.
Yes.
And they are volunteers, correct?
No, they're paid.
They're paid.
They're all paid.
To my knowledge, yes.
I can't.
Mr. President, is this
They're all paid. And one thing to check on that we have to, and I also want to amend, I'm not quite sure, but I'm almost positive Wilson is volunteer. Because I have guys who work for Wilson that are also EMS, and they're also, God bless you.
Thank you.
And also firemen. So we need to check and make sure that, because if you, that's a different, they get added to this if they're volunteers. You know, my issue on this is EMS service is going down the drain rapidly because they don't have the funding. Eastern Squad was just about dead a few months ago, and now they're coming back. NASA shut theirs down, now they're back. We all know we need emergency services when we need it. And let me tell you, from a person from 2 weeks ago who was rear-ended on 22, and I'm jammed up against the wall with a client in the back, I was never so happy in my life to see emergency people pulling my big butt out of the van. Even though I was petrified because I didn't know how much damage was done to my body that day. So, you know, there were 2 EMS services on that highway that day. Thank God they were. You know, you had Nancy Run, you had Suburban. These places are close to damn near bankruptcy. You know, but yet we want to pay those who aren't getting anything. This is something we need to look at long and hard. If we're going to do something, we need to make sure that they're all covered because they're all vital. At some point in your life, everybody in this room is going to need an EMS service or a fire service. In 1994, someone torched my house, and the fire department came and put that out. Okay? In the middle of the night. We're going to need those services. To strictly say that only the volunteers, you know, but I agree with Mr. McClure. Bethlehem Easton, they're provided by the city itself. All their equipment's bought for them, all their salaries or pension, that's all taken care of by the city. Oh, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to make that point. And I'm done saying what I got to say. Now that we have a first and a second, I need all those in favor to vote on this thing? Are we still on the amendment?
So it's best if we're going to discuss the overall ordinance, we should probably wait until we get through this amendment.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay.
All right, on the changes and amendment, you want to make sure you got it right there, Linda?
Yeah, change commissioners to fiscal affairs.
Okay, with that said, all those in favor?
You have to
Go
do a
ahead,
roll
please, that
call.
condition that, please. Roll call vote.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes. Now
Passes
that,
by a vote of 9-0.
now the amendment has been adopted.
So we have open discussion now?
Now we can have a more open discussion.
I have a.
Go ahead, Mr. Ritt.
Thank you. I watched this, actually, I watched it twice. And as Mr. McClure said earlier, it's tough because how do you say no to wanting to do something nice for people who do good things? And in this era, now I watch at the federal level, and sadly, it's coming down to the local level. It's sad, but if like you believe in something, you love the people, and whoever disagrees with you hates this group. And if you do this other thing, you hate the group, and they love the. It's gotten crazy. There's no nuance anymore. There's no reasoned, critical thinking discussion. You're bad or you're good. On this one, I think it's well-intentioned. My concern is, and as somebody who washed fire trucks as a junior firefighter for Bath, way back in a dark age, the volunteer fire companies have a problem, and Mr. Gofredo spoke about it, I thought, quite well at the committee meeting. But a lot of the problems, I don't know, would somebody like this, I mean, who's going to turn down not getting 250 or maybe 500 if you're married, and many are. I mean, that's pretty much your entire county tax, average tax for the year. So probably the least amount of tax you're taxed by by a level of government is the one that goes away. The school district should do it, but they'll never talk about this. But the thing is, I think that there's many levels of problems why we're having problems nowadays. One was when I was young, a lot of guys were on the fire departments, volunteers, because they worked 40 hours a week and then they did this. And you had the club and I'd go down there and the guys would be drinking while we were washing trucks and, and there was a camaraderie. People don't do that much anymore. I think part of it is that volunteer services have changed because our society has changed. I mean, maybe you've seen it. Just getting people out to volunteer for anything. One time, there was a time where Graysdale, the volunteers pretty much ran the place, and we still fortunately get them, but volunteerism is down. Will this bring it back? I don't know. It certainly would be appreciated by those in it. The other thing is, I just question the township's role in this. And I know they throw money at it. And it's easy for me to say because I live in Bethlehem and it's paid for on my taxes. But I do know across the entire valley, townships love to brag about how they never raise taxes. And you'll hear these guys talk. And I mean, I've talked to them and they've yelled at me and I've yelled back at them. We don't raise taxes. Well, but you don't want a professional. And I'm not saying volunteers aren't professional, but you don't want to pay. You don't want to pick up the cost. I mean, you have Lower Macungie Township still uses volunteers for both police. I mean, you use the state police and fire. I mean, these guys want to live on the cheap. And sometimes services cost money. You've heard me say about Graysdale. I believe we should keep it. Am I naive enough to think that it's not going to cost us money down the road? Oh, no, it will. And I understand, and John's often said, well, how much money would you pay over above? I have a red line, I just don't know what it is yet. And I mean, but Graysdale to me is vital. And so, yeah, I would think if we have to pay that money into it, so be it. But I'm concerned, again, that this is well-intentioned, but is going to have ramifications. And I have a question, if I may ask Mr. Barron. It's an important question, if I may, Mr. President.
Mr. Barron,
If
please
Mr.
approach.
Barron's willing to come up.
podium, please.
I've never known him not to be willing to come up, but we'll see.
Oh, unless you're working, he's doing the football game, you're in trouble.
No, you don't want me to go into his flag routine. But anyway, Mr. Barron, have you done any figures on how much local real estate tax revenue this would cost the county?
No, because this is such a new program. I don't have any numbers of how many volunteers there are. There's lots of factors in that.
And this is going to be totally dependent on the people who run these departments to tell us who's entitled to it and who isn't. So we have no idea the numbers.
The way I understand it is that the person applies, they get a certification from the captain, and then that certification is presented to the county for processing. From the way it's done other places, that's my limited knowledge.
Right. So we have no idea what the financial impact of this will be.
None whatsoever.
Okay. And I know I'm sure others want to talk to you, but let me just then finish and say, I'm not going to support this because I'm not against volunteers, but I believe there are so many factors above and beyond this tax rebate. And I think when we get into tax rebates, I believe in the idea of a rate for everybody. It's a real estate rate. That's why after the whole mishigas with these TIFs and LERTAs, and I told Mr. Lott, somebody was in my face and I said, I'm never going to vote for another tax incentive again, ever, never, as long as I'm sitting here. We don't need to, because if you're a developer or speculator, you don't need help if you want to come to Northampton County. So the thing is, you know, it's a tough call, but I mean, I think there's enough here, and I'm not going to make the motion, Mr. President, to put this on hold for a bit, but I'd like to know more information about the money end of it. I'd like to know more information about the numbers we're talking about. I don't know, maybe I'd change my mind then. As of tonight, I can't support this, not because I don't think it's a nice gesture. I just have a fundamental disagreement with carving out folks and saying we're doing this because, you know, we like the fact that you're doing this. I don't know if this is really going to solve any of the problems. I think it'll be a benefit to the folks who are in it. I don't know if it'll bring one extra person, though, in to volunteer, especially if you're working 2 jobs already and, you know, you got a lot of stuff going on in your life. But that's just my opinion, and that's what they pay me for.
As far as you have.
Thank you.
So I did do some research into this, and there are approximately 50 squads at minimum across the county. That's not, again, including the paid squads. When I asked, and I did ask several different companies from different areas how they determine what's full service or how many people come to meet that criteria, approximately half of those. So if a squad, say 50 squads have an average of 30 members, maybe 15 would qualify. Now, granted, some squads have 10, some have 50. But the bottom line is they have to comply with some pretty rigorous conditions before they meet this criteria. They have to attend so many calls. They have to attend so much training. So I think there was an allegation at one point that maybe, well, people would pad the list. There's no way to do so because their ability to receive funding from their municipality at the end of the year is contingent upon the accuracy of those lists. And those lists are audited every year. And so there's a lot more to this culture than I even realized when I proposed this. I didn't propose this to increase volunteers. I have no other motive than to offer a break to people that I think are volunteers and deserve it. And, you know, you could say that about other things, but the state of Pennsylvania has allowed this one to stand. And so that's why I pushed it in this county. It's been done in several other counties, and I believe it's in Lehigh as well. So as far as if you added that up, we have a $584 million budget proposed. I don't think this amount of money would scrape the surface.
Mr. Cusack has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another technical question. Maybe this goes to our solicitor. If you look at section 14, effective date, it says this ordinance shall become effective immediately. Now, that's contrary to the Home Rule Charter,
I would
which is 30 days after the date of enactment.
Well,
you
their
get-
eligibility
yeah.
is still a 2024 tax.
Effective 30 days hence.
So the effective immediately is out.
Yeah.
Scratch.
So we would need to make an amendment?
Thank you for pointing that out. That probably was my scrivener's error.
Okay, that being said, then in section 14, I'll make a motion that we strike the word immediately and replace it with 30 days after the date of enactment.
I'll second that.
Mr. Giovanni, call for a vote. As soon as you get ready, let me know.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo, Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 9-0.
All right, now, more discussion? Mr. Gofredo.
I just wanted to give a little clarity. I think there's 38 departments. Average department has anywhere from 20 to 25 active members, some less, some more.
How many members, I'm sorry?
On average, 20, 25. And I think the verbiage inside the ordinance basically makes it pertain to the active members that are coming to calls. That number would come down even lower. I think most calls, you'll have 9 or 10 ordinary, like typical guys that show up. So on the high end, you're probably looking at 250,000. On the low end, you're maybe looking at 100,000 if you extrapolate those numbers out. I think we take $98 million in real estate taxes, something like that number, so.
What was?
But Mr. Heckman, I will say, everything I don't want to, you don't want to muddy the idea of why you're volunteering. It's not for the money. That's not why these people are doing it.
No.
It's a token of appreciation. I think the numbers we're overblowing what $200,000 would do to the budget, but then we're also basically stating to every other volunteer, it's like, you're different. So I understand it's not as cut and dry. I think Mr. McClure made a good point. It's a good intention. I think you said the same thing.
Yeah, may I? 'Cause-
You can respond.
All right. What's the average Northampton County home real estate tax right now? I think it's around 500 a year.
I think that's what they said, 500 and some.
It is approximately 500 a year, depending on when they pay it, either at the 10% discount period or in the base period.
Okay, so I hear you. And again, I'm not saying any of this to disparage this ordinance. What we're talking about then, in essence, is a 50 to 100% roughly break on your county tax. That's more than a token in my mind. And I don't think it's going to make, do I think it'll, I'd like, before I'd vote on something, I'd like to have all the loose ends tied. And I'd really like to know, I'm sure it's not going to be a huge bite in the 98 million we take in. But honestly, I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions and discussion. And for that reason, I'm not going to vote for it tonight. But I voted for the amendments because I didn't want to sit here and just blow off the people who sincerely want to vote for it tonight. So anyway, but I hear what you're saying, John. And I every now and then, you know, you make a decision to vote one way or another, and you almost are fighting with yourself. And sometimes I feel if you're not fighting with yourself, maybe you're not giving it enough thought. So that's all I've had to say on this one.
Anybody else? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, with the volunteer fire, and I'll defer to Mr. Gofredo for clarity, but they're really fighting two fronts. One is raising the finances in order to operate. Just in the past, since COVID, the cost of a replacement vehicle has probably grown by 40%. The ability for these fire companies to raise funds as volunteers, going back to the advent of the casino, you can see, you can directly chart that if the average person would donate $1 to the fire company, casino came in, now that dollar is being split. And they've lost a significant amount of potential revenue that would normally have gone to the volunteer companies for bingo and games of chance, and now there are other things making demands for that money from the people. So that's a huge front that I've seen across the volunteer organizations, and it affects the ambulance and so on and so forth, at the same time. The second front, which is the one I think Ms. Hefner was pointing to, was really how do you then incentivize new volunteers or current volunteers to stay in the game, right? With the state passing more and more requirements for training, it used to be you join a company, you'd be trained, you'd be given your equipment, and you have the same thing for 20 years. The amount of training, the equipment replacement cost alone for an individual firefighter, I believe, is about $5,000 to $6,000 every 3 to 5 years. Certain
Yeah, the
equipment.
gear is like $7,000 or $8,000.
$7,000 or $8,000. So while they're losing revenue, the requirements from the state just to maintain what they're doing with the volunteers has grown appreciably. The cost of a piece of equipment has gone through the roof. And they're also fighting then to how do you maintain and recruit new volunteers. And the volunteers themselves are put through a rigor of the amount of education and training that they have to go through on an annual basis is a deterrent to many volunteers that would just like to be able to show up and participate in whatever's going on. So for that reason, I think that the ordinance that Ms. Hefner put forward, it's a token. As Mr. Gofredo says, it's some appreciation from this body saying we appreciate what you do, stay in the game. The volunteers are going to continue to have to fight this overall. As the executive pointed out, Easton, Bethlehem, they all have paid services. Some of the municipalities that can afford that, that's great. But I live up in a community across multiple municipalities that cannot. We are solely dependent on the volunteerism. And that's 35,000 people across the sleep belt that are dependent. And thank God we have a great number of volunteer companies and volunteers across that region, but it's a struggle. It's a struggle for them month after month, year over year. So for that reason, I'll be supporting this ordinance.
Anybody else?
Can I ask John one more question? Because this is an education. So I don't know as much about this as you do. So I like to pick brains. I pick Tom's brain on computer stuff. I'll pick your brain on this. How much do the municipalities, because what Mr. Brown said is important. I realize everybody puts new laws into effect. It doesn't affect them. So it's like, you have to have more training, again, best intentions. You have to have this, you have to have that. We're not going to pay for it, but you have to have it. How much are the townships? I know some vary, but do the townships, don't they pick up some of these costs to I mean, they're the ones getting the benefit. The citizens are, but the townships, I mean, they've got to be contributing some money towards this, aren't they?
Every borough municipality is different, and everything Mr. Brown was saying about the trucks and the equipment, obviously this is not going to help that, but the county does do a great job of giving grants. The county is a big help for grant dollars. I know Columbia Fire Company, Rosetto, it's almost like a profession is fundraising, and Mr. Brown, I know he knows about, because he comes to them, but the fundraising is what is the lifeblood. I think the borough does give a small amount, but it's like we're saying, like it's a token. It's saying, hey, we appreciate it, but they don't have the money. That's why they don't have a professional firefighting service, because they can't afford it.
Well, they won't raise taxes.
You can't do it. It's, if there's 1,500 people or 2,000 people in there, how do you pay for $1 million truck? How you gonna?
John, you know what?
There's no such thing as
Yeah,
a
right.
truck
And
anymore.
John, I appreciate it, because that's the discussion with a lot of things, like healthcare. There's a cost for everything, and it's what society's willing to pay for and what they're not. And I hear you. I think, though, we always have to remember, when we do this, whether it's for a developer or a speculator or whatever, if we reduce a tax somewhere, somebody else is going to pay. It's not like it goes away. So what we're doing is, in a de facto way, we're saying to somebody else, you're going to pick up the slack. And that's just the fact. I mean, so I always get a little nervous and I should have been more nervous in years past, but I listened to economic development people, my mistake, about, giving out tax breaks to businesses. But that being said, okay, thank you. I mean, I didn't realize some of these things till tonight. Thank you very much. I'm done.
I'm also aware that some of our firemen are also EMSs, AMTs. Yeah, so that's another wrinkle we need to look at. As much as I'd like to say, let's go with this thing, I think we need more information. And that's just me. I wasn't here for the last meeting. What I'm hearing and what I've watched on, and I didn't want to react a lot because I was kind of woozy when I was watching this. But I think we need more information. And with that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we table this till we get some more information on exactly what we're looking at with dollars and cents, how many people does it affect? And I really like to know what the cost of the people coming back to us, because if we do this, Ron's 100% correct. Somebody else has got to pick up the difference, and the rest of the tax people are going to have to do this. So, I'm just going to make a motion to table this thing, and if anybody else wants a second, I'm fine. I think it's not going away, but we need to get I'd like to have some more information that I could feel comfortable making a decision one way or another, because like I said, somebody's not going to get something here.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm just
second.
moving it along.
Conversation's over.
No discussion.
No discussion. It's tabled until we bring it back up. We're going to vote on it.
You gotta vote.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Kuzic?
No.
Mr. Giovanni?
No.
Mr. Gofredo?
No.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
No.
Motion fails by a vote of 4 to 5.
Okay.
Is Mr. Gofredo allowed to vote on a
Table.
tabling?
Yes.
For an ordinance that he is not allowed to vote on? I would think that he doesn't have say.
Recused himself.
Well, wouldn't he recuse himself from this vote as well?
He's allowed to vote on the table. He's not allowed to vote on the ordinance. He was allowed to vote on the amendments too. But he can't vote on whether we pass it or not.
If I may.
You may.
I'm just asking.
Okay.
This is a procedural problem. It's not a conflict for him. He has a conflict, and I've already conveyed that to him under the ordinance. There is no conflict on the procedural table of motion.
Thank you for that clarification. I just asked.
Just,
Mr. Gofredo.
and I appreciate all the points that are being made. I think they're valid. To make sense of the numbers, if 250,000, and I think I said 38 fire companies, I think it's 35. I think I counted a couple paid staffs in there. 250,000 of 98 million, which is just the tax revenue. Our intergovernment revenue, and we have 500 some $80 million, but just of the tax revenue, it's less than 1/4%. So yes, it will have to get picked up by somebody else, but we are talking, like I say, this is a gesture. Let's argue it on the merits of that, but if we're worried about the financial risk that's putting the county under, it's negated. I think it's very, very small, where I don't think that should be the driving factor. I think the principle of it that Mr. Heckman brings up is the principles are sound, yes. I think you start making exceptions, where do you draw the line? I think they drew the line here with fire and EMS. Some people might not think that's deserved. I think people that volunteer, I don't think we do it for the tax break, so arguments are great. I just want to put the numbers in perspective.
Zirinsky.
So I was willing to table this because I was afraid that it wouldn't get enough votes if Mr. Gofredo recused himself, that it would be 4-4, or that it wouldn't pass. But I think that if we look at the numbers that Lori provided, if there's 50 squads and there's 10,
35.
He updated me.
It's 35.
so your number wasn't,
Numbers lower than that.
Mine was high.
so she had
Last year.
EMS. So my concern, well, that's a little bit of a concern too. So you're telling me there's 35.
15 less.
So if there's 15,
Less.
I mean, we're not looking at a huge dollar amount on the tax rolls. I think that this is definitely a token of appreciation to show, and that the maximum amount that somebody could receive is $250. That would cover only a portion of some people's taxes and all of someone else's taxes. I don't find that prohibitive to voting for this. I will vote for this because I think that we do need something to incentivize our volunteer emergency services, medical services, and volunteer firefighters. I think they do a great job for nothing, literally for nothing. And this is only a token. It's a very nominal amount, and I think that we can definitely absorb that as a county. And if you're worried about other people paying for that, I think you have to worry about other people showing up when you need the emergency services too. And I like to know that people are there when you need them.
Anybody else? I appreciate your input, Mr. Minsky. Mr. Lott.
Yes, I support the ordinance, the objective of the ordinance. I don't think it's a burden. It's going to be a major burden on the county as far as the income. My concern is it legal or not? You know, we heard an argument from the county exec that it is not legal. When we asked our solicitor, we got, could be, probably could defend it, maybe not defend it. So I got a pretty much it's not legal, and we got a pretty much could go either way. That doesn't help me as a councilman to decide this issue, because if it's illegal, I don't want to support it. If it's going to be challenged in court and we're going to lose, I don't want to support it. I can't get that answer. I was hoping if we tabled it, I was going to ask, could you really check out the IRS end of this thing? Are we treating people different that are the same in the eyes of the taxpayers? I mean, to me, it seems like well worth looking into. I mean, even our solicitor said it's a sticky point. It could go either way, which doesn't really make me feel that confident in it. I like a lawyer to tell me, yeah, it can go either way, but I strongly believe that we are correct going this way. I've always, when I dealt with lawyers, got an insight, yeah, you never know what a judge does. You absolutely don't know until you're there. There's a lot of factors that go in a case, but I've always had a lawyer that told me I feel good about this or I don't feel good about this. So we didn't get that. I'm going to support it, but I would have liked that more time to really find out if this is legal or not. We aren't going to give ourselves that time, so I will support it, but I wish we would have gave ourselves more time to really look into the details of this ordinance and what the actual effects are, because just today, we had a lot of problems with this ordinance. The writing of it, we're having, we don't have answers. We're just learning how many people are on the squad. Our financial guy doesn't know what the implications to the county. All that, I think, is a reason why this should have been tabled, brought back up after a lot of that was answered. All that being said, I'm not going to drag it out any farther. I'll support it, and God, I hope this is legal. Thank you.
Wow. Anybody else? Mr. Brown?
To Mr. Lott's point, I asked that question, I think, when this was raised originally, when it was introduced, and I believe our solicitor has provided the answer. It is legal as presented, and I think his comment was there isn't anything that can't be challenged. and you don't know what that challenge will be, whether you're told it's black and white, it can still be challenged, and we don't know what that would be. That was what I understood our solicitors say, so I'm confident that the ordinance is, as written and amended twice, is legal. So, thank you.
You're more confident than he is.
Is there anybody else?
Feeling confident.
Let's call for the vote. As amended.
As
I'm sorry.
amended.
Let's call for the vote as amended.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo.
Abstain.
Mr. Heckman.
No.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
We have, it's adopted by a vote of 7-1 with one abstention.
Okay.
Thank you. And may I just state that I just got notice that the Bucks County Commissioners just approved by unanimous vote to do the same thing yesterday. So
Well, there you go.
we're now 5.
Public hearing on an ordinance entitled, an ordinance issuing a request for proposals seeking bidders to design and implement upgrades to the audiovisual capabilities of the county council meeting room. And Mr. Giovanni and Mr. Galfredo introduced the ordinance. Questions from the public? Mr. Barron.
Steve Barron, Director of Fiscal Affairs, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I sent this letter to County Council yesterday, but in case anybody didn't get it, just want to read it into the record. October 4th, 2023. Dear members of Northampton County Council, after review of the RFP that you are requesting to be placed out for public consideration, there are several issues related to the writing and practical nature of the work to upgrade the meeting systems in the County Council meeting room. Putting aside the various Article 13 ramifications, there are practical matters that the County Council has not considered. They are as follows. 1. Northampton County, of which Council is a part, already contracts with Vision Technologies for several of these services. 2, Vision has contractual obligations to meet when it comes to technology placed within the Northampton County Government Center. This equipment procured without Vision would not be supported by Vision if not procured through them or with their team, considering the technology in relation to the entire county network and security. 3, Vision is responsible for the entire county network infrastructure. This new equipment must meet Vision standards to be installed on the county's network infrastructure. If it does not, guarantees for uptime and security may be nullified in the Vision contract. 4, all devices are evaluated and scrutinized for reliability. Every peripheral and computer that is a connected device meets the high standards of security and integrity to protect the data contained within Northampton County's computer network. Vision assures that all standards are met for security when a device is placed on the network and that all connections to and from the device meet the standards for network security. 5, access to hardware in the County Council meeting room can only be by Vision Technology staff or vendors authorized through and supervised by Vision Technology staff. Okay. Access to hardware in County Council meeting room can only be by Vision Technology staff or vendors authorized through and supervised by Vision Technology, supervised by Vision Technology staff and approved by the county executive. This means that the RFP goes through Vision, reserves the right to not allow the vendors and newly installed equipment onto the county's network if they or the administration feel it could open up a network vulnerability. Written in the contract between Vision and the county, it states Vision will, and this is in quotes, this is right from the contract, review, validate, and approve all purchases from all county entities that are technology, audiovisual, telecommunications related from a technical relevance, strategic investment, and environmental fit perspective. This contract was approved by County Council. They, at the direction of the administration, in quotes, approve all technology related to purchase requested for other departments and divisions, of which County Council is one. This RFP looks to circumvent the contract and those important measures that keep the county infrastructure safe from infiltration. This issue, along with any other potential issues that may come up from a technology perspective, makes the RFP ill-advised and not workable within the context of the current IT makeup in Northampton County. Thank you for your attention to these concerns, and I sign the letter. Mark Alexander from Vision Technologies is here today. He came up from Virginia to help facilitate any other technology-related questions you may have about the RFP, but I think my letter speaks for itself. Thank you.
Mr. Gofredo.
Mr. Galfredo?
Oh.
Mr. Barron?
Question, Mr. Barron, maybe he might be able to answer this question, but Mr. Giovanni, when we asked originally if we could upgrade the system, was anybody told that we couldn't upgrade it with?
Yes, I believe somebody said that it couldn't be done, and my thought on that is, well, anything can be done, it's just how much you want to pay for it.
Mr. Banner, are you, so clearly we have the right to send out an RFP. We've discussed that. We have the ability to at least send out an RFP. Would you agree with that?
I respectfully disagree.
Mr. Solicitor, can you opine?
Can you opine? This is like the new word we're bantering around a lot these days. We're loving to opine.
You gotta have a law degree to be on council, I guess.
You addressed our solicitor?
This is an ordinance for an RFP. It is not for a contract. It is anticipated, as it has in the past, that county council has put out RFPs, most recently for a wage study, I believe, and for Graysdale's operational study.
Right. Okay.
So, Mr. Barron, I don't know where he went to, but my assumption would be Vision Technologies, if they can handle the work, would absolutely want to bid on this job. And if the job is shown to be in their scope, they can handle it, and their price is good, then we would use them. If they gave us a price for a hypothetical amount of work of $20,000 and some, or let's say $100,000, somebody gave a price of $20,000, then we could question further saying, hey, what are we getting, what are we not getting? But I don't think anybody is suggesting here that we want to compromise the security of the data of Northampton County. I think we just want to have webcams or microphones that are maybe better pick up this meeting.
So the microphones and webcams in the budget this year, the cameras are going to be upgraded. It's part of the IT infrastructure upgrade. But I digress. The ability to vet the vendor and guarantee the uptime with the contractual relationship we already have with Vision, that has to be done under Vision's watch. I don't have the expertise. That's what we pay Vision for. And quite honestly, if they don't vet the vendors, if they're not part of that process, you're not hooking peripherals up to this network. I can't risk the network security.
I don't even want to. I would like to be able to say, hey, can we do this? And somebody say, yes, we can, or no, we can't. If they say they can't, then I think we have the opportunity to say who can, and Vision Technologies could even help write the RFP so they can be as involved as they want to be.
I think the RFP is written and you're looking to vote on that RFP now. Is that not what this hearing's about?
A contract's different from an RFP, is it not?
It's different from the RFP, but you're asking them to do a specific scope of work that will ultimately tie back to the contract and that will be an exhibit to the contract. There are some contradictions within the RFP. I didn't really want to go into this, but there are several contradictions in the RFP. And my staff is not really prepared to answer some of those questions because I don't know really what council wants to do with regard to just upgrading the is it upgrading the cameras? Do you need a new network switch? Do you need new production equipment to help broadcast to YouTube? It's really not that simple when you think about it.
Yes.
Mr. Fader, with your permission, Mr. Barron.
Yes.
I don't know, I didn't write this. I remember when we first got into COVID. We'd like to Zoom this time. And we were told flat out, you can't do it in this room. It's impossible, it won't work. Heads were going, no, no, no.
That's correct.
And, all right, well, that's not correct. I mean, the
Well-
fact of the matter is, please, I reached out to audiovisual experts on my own.
Okay.
And basically, they said, you can do anything in any room you want if you want to spend the money. So I felt like, and this is happening more and more. And Mr. Mace, I don't want to get him involved because every administration, the guys that do this, they'll do what they're told. And you know, but they can't say that publicly. We're not telling them to do anything.
We're not, yeah.
Whoa, let's,
Excuse me.
no, Ms. Yes, he does.
All right, I made a general statement that people who contract, they're under the direction of a director. Administrative director. Now, let's just say that's my opinion, okay? And others will say that's a wrong opinion. So be it. Can I finish?
I'm just, I didn't interrupt you.
Right. The thing is, council has said we'd like to have the ability. COVID pointed that out. The haphazard way that we handled COVID as a group was terrible. And I personally, I don't know if it can be done or not, but I refuse to take the quick flippant, no, you can't do it, it's impossible. When in fact, it is possible. It may involve all kinds of stuff. Contractually, this is accelerated over executive administrations on and on. I've said this to people in council. If you don't do what you feel you have to do, somebody out there will tell you what you can do, and that's usually administrations, what you're allowed to do. The thing is, council has put out these things in the past, and again, it's the judge that will decide. I have always said, let's go get a declaratory judgment from a judge. But council wants to do this thing, that they want better connectivity. And it's not like, oh, well, you guys are gonna make the system insecure. You wanna have, I have to make sure that the system is safe. Well, we all want a safe system. You're gonna do this, you hate the employees. Stop, can we all just stop that? Nobody sitting up here wants to destroy the security of the county. They were asking a basic question and they were shut down at the beginning. Shut down without a discussion. They were told no, end of discussion, no thing. And that happens all too often. So I'm just gonna say to you, I will support his ordinance. And if it has to go to court, so be it. Just like I didn't support the other one. The fact of the matter is, council as a legitimate body of government should, oh boy. All right, well, you'll read about what I said. See, that's it.
Thank you for the example.
But could they be voice actuated? They could be. All right, so here's the thing.
But if they're voice actuated and Mr. Brown is speaking and you happen to be on Zoom or outside and it creates a feedback loop because it's voice activated.
Well, yeah, but you said you're not an expert. So maybe we should have experts discuss that. You're not an expert. Mr. Dertinger's not an expert.
Vision's here.
Hey, wait a minute.
I would like to object. This is the public hearing portion of this. This is not the council debate moment. This is public hearing. And you are now you are now filibustering when a person came up to speak to this. And it is inappropriate.
Is anybody else? Did you ask if anybody else?
No, we weren't done. I hadn't gone to council yet.
We're doing a public comment.
We're doing public comment.
I'm sorry. I apologize. That was a point of order.
Thank you.
We'll put that in the rules we're writing.
Ms. Ruckus.
Melissa Rudis, County Solicitor. In addition to the concerns that Mr. Barron just addressed, there are also concerns about violations of the Home Rule Charter. My staff did prepare a legal memorandum on this dated September 21st, 2023. I believe that was sent to your county solicitor, I'm assuming shared with all of you. So there are other concerns set forth in there with regard to this proposed ordinance.
Anything else from the public? So the public part of this is over. Council discussion.
Just so I'm clear, so I know going forward, if somebody comes up and they're willing to take questions and answers and questions, they can say, I'm done. I don't want to answer any more questions. So how am I out of line, or anybody up here, if you're standing there having a dialogue and you decide it's over, well, you violated something? I didn't violate anything. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to. I don't have the power to tell you to stay up there. I don't have the power to tell him to stay up there. So let's, again, this is the problem we have. Nobody wants to work together. It's I'm right, you're wrong. You're right. And it's like, I'm going to show you that I'm right. No, if he doesn't want to answer the questions in the dialogue, he came up, and you know he came up to have a dialogue. Tell us what we're doing is wrong. Tell us that the technology can't be done. And the fact is, I was just talking back and forth with him. If he was offended, he could have said, you're an ass, I'm sitting down. But he didn't. And you could say the same thing. But to say somehow we're doing this wrong and procedurally, stop it. Just stop already. God. I mean, we're a local government. You want us to run for Congress again, run for Congress. But Jesus, I'm sorry. That's it. I'm done.
Discussion from council, we're still talking now. Council's time. I am just like, Mr. Lott.
Yes, I'm wondering from the sponsors, so we put an RFP out that is or is not illegal. What would the next step be? A contract, correct? Can we put a contract out? Yes.
As crafted, it should be noted that this ordinance gives the unqualified right to council to accept or reject. That's number one. Number two, as drafted, there is no cost to the county for the RFP submission.
I appreciate that, but my question is after the RFP.
I understand
The
that.
next step is?
The next step is for council to consider the submission, and then I think it needs to be looked at, that I'm now alerted to. There's concerns with another contract. But that certainly would have to have all of the information from the submission on the RFP to look at that.
So the next step would be a contract, which we cannot put out.
You can't do that.
After the RFP, after we evaluate it, after we say, do our council thing, the next step to get this done would be to put a contract out, correct?
If you wanted to get it done under the RFP, correct, but you could reject it and say no contract.
Right. Are we legally allowed to put that contract out at that point? The council?
We need to look at the information with the RFP as submitted as to whether there's any conflicts with existing contracts. We've heard there may be some, but we don't know what they are.
So we may or may not be able to put a contract out.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Zirinsky.
I just want to ask a question to solicitor as well. So what happens if there are multiple bids on this RFP? We wouldn't get to decide which bid was taken. Isn't that the process of not this council? Like, that's not something that we do, is we don't have multiple bids in front of us in an RFP, because if you RFP, you could get more than one bid, right?
Okay.
Yes, so if we had 3 bids, we wouldn't, as a council, choose the bids. That's not our role, as I understand it. That role is someone else's.
As crafted, again, council reserves the right to accept or reject any and all proposals. Council can look at that, and if they are, as Mr. Lott indicates, proceeding to a contract, there needs to be a determination, is it, and I hate that word illegal, is it appropriate under the contracts and the statutes as apply, number one? And number two, is it in the best interest of the county?
But it's not appropriate for us to evaluate multiple bids,
And number three,
is it?
we are responsible to award it to the lowest responsible bidder. And I don't know who that is at this point. I don't even know if there's going to be a bid.
Okay, Mr. Giovanni.
No, we don't. That is true.
Are you finished, Ms. Zirinsky?
I am.
Are you sure?
I'm sorry for being
I
so
see.
testy.
You are very testy tonight, I have to say. Like, somebody like peed in your Cheerios or something, you know what I mean?
I apologize.
Like, is it possible that I could ask
I would,
the question to Vision?
the vision representative?
Yes.
So you're asking the vision representative to come up?
I would like to ask a question.
He will be recognized.
To the Vision representative.
If he wishes.
He can just pedal
This
his
is
way
county-
on up. podium. Sorry.
Mr. President, point of order, would you tell the individual?
I will ask.
He has the right to shut down any questions at his discretion when he wants to. He's under no obligation to answer a question he doesn't want to ask.
But point of order, we under, what are we
You
under?
got to answer one point of order before you go to the next.
I honestly think that
All
I
right.
still have the floor because I'm asking him a question.
Stop. We're under council discussion. Ms. Zirinsky has asked the man from Vision to come up and answer whatever question she has. And if he feels uncomfortable with not answering the question, that's his choice.
That's all I'm saying.
That's
You should
America.
inform
That's
people now
democracy.
that they don't have to.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Can you please state your name for the
Name
record?
name and,
My name is Mark Alexander, Vision Technologies.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Now, I don't know if you've read the project objectives here.
And I have indeed, yes.
Okay, so are any of these project objectives things that you could potentially do in the confines of your contract that you currently hold with the county?
Yes.
So why aren't you doing them then?
I would argue that we are doing them.
Okay, so would you argue, then this
I
RFP,
would state that we are doing them.
you are doing them. So this RFP is redundant at best to be soliciting the services that you already are doing. And at worst, it's soliciting a competitive contract that would nullify or negate some of the things that Mr. Barron outlined. Norco already contracts. We cannot procure things on our own as a council that would conflict with your standards or your hardware. That could potentially nullify the current contract that we have with you, and there's access issues and things like that. Is that correct?
That is, yes, largely correct.
What are the ramifications? Well, I guess, can you tell us, some of these things are, the new system should meet the following objectives: furnishing and installing audio, video, and control systems for the county chambers. Can you tell us how you are accomplishing that?
So you currently have audio-video systems in place, and your controls are at your console. So for your Zoom meetings, your Teams meetings, you should have a proctor, someone that's able to mute, unmute, and do things like that. You have the technology to do that today.
Wait a second, we can do Zoom on these?
I believe that you have the Zoom capability.
Because we do not have Zoom during meetings. That was one of the things that we all wanted, because, I mean, just to make a point, during my Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting, we were supposed to have a speaker, but that speaker could not be here that specific time or that day. They asked to Zoom in, and they were unable to.
Okay, so.
Because they said that the technology doesn't work.
Okay, so there are certain ways in which you need to plan a meeting for these things to work correctly. And
Can you enlighten us at some point in time? Because
so I have
we
to
need
ask one question, because I'm not involved in the exact implementation of technology
Okay,
for this specific room.
okay.
So is there Zoom or no Zoom? Okay. So
Oh,
when I state there is a Zoom capability, right, in order for that to work correctly, you do have to put some planning into the meeting for someone to either call in and to be heard within the room, or in a Zoom situation where they're able to appear on your screens in front of you. And I believe that the screens are also tied to these external screens.
Yeah.
That they would be able to be seen there.
so what I'd like, we need to go through this list and find out how we can access and utilize the technology that already exists in this room.
I agree.
Because apparently, we don't even know what we can do. Because we, as a council, have been told over and over again that we can't have Zoom, we can't have people Zoom into the meetings, that's not how this goes, that we don't have the technology to do it. So if you're telling us that we do, then we just need to access and figure out how that technology is going to be utilized best for our meetings and how we need to prepare for them in order to utilize that technology.
I would agree. that it's a matter of knowing how to use the technology. Now, I say that in a qualified manner in the sense that there are, again, planning that's required, and we do support planning. I was upstairs before this meeting, making sure that our team, not making sure, because our team does it, making sure that the recording was turned on, that the cameras are turned on, and that the room is ready for the YouTube stream, for example.
So is there a means by which you have like a training or something for individuals to learn how to use the technology, especially our staff?
Yes, we have actually previously trained staff.
You've trained our staff on how to use Zoom in this room.
I don't know about Zoom, but I know that we have provided training.
Okay, we need to train our staff and us on how to use Zoom in this meeting. And in some way, shape, or form, we need to go through this list and find out what our contract already enables us to utilize. So improve audio capabilities. I'm not quite sure what that means, but we have these new microphones, and mine works now. It still even has the sponge on it. Improved reliability. I'm not quite sure what that means, but improved ease of use. I think that would come with understanding the capabilities of the system.
Correct.
Because, I mean, I teach online, so I know that a lot of this is just like user error, human error, like you just don't know what you don't know. But once you figure out how to use the technology, it's a whole new world, right?
Well, and I'm sure most people here are familiar with the technology, right? It's, as I said, it's a matter of how you are choosing to conduct your meeting, what kind of planning needs to be put in place, and obviously training.
Yeah, because this says, another thing that was in the system design was number 7, ability to host hybrid meetings where the council members may participate in meetings in person or over video conferencing, because currently we're restricted to only calling in. And I want to tell you, calling in is a lot more difficult than being on a Zoom.
Sure. And
So you can integrate Zoom in these meetings so that a county council member could participate.
So I don't want to speak specifically about the circumstances of how a meeting is set up, but it is something we could certainly support. If the technology is in place, then we would have the ability to support the setup of the meeting.
I got it.
So I really like what's here. I would like you to go over this at some point in time and tell us. I think they already have it.
So essentially, so I basically wrote 3 statements against not like for or against this RFP, but just to clarify.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, the first one under provisions, under the introduction of the improvements to the room. And as you noted yourself, some of those things are subjective, and some of those things are already planned for budget for 2024. So microphones, cameras, things like that. So if that's already budgeted, it doesn't really make sense to have somebody give you an RFP for that, because it's forthcoming, and it's just be partnering with our team as to when and what, right? But to speak to some of what Mr. Barron was speaking about is that, in general, it's appropriate for the Information Services Division to provide requirements and specifications based on roles and responsibilities outlined in our contract. Information Services Division has provided technology solutions in the existing space, this space, and should therefore provide expertise by skilled staff for changes to the space that Information Services will be required to then support, because the RFP does go on to say that Information Services Division would be expected to support whatever is installed in this room. And that then goes into some of the network connectivity, the security, things like that. So under, what's my page 2? System design, I went into some details on scope of work, project objectives, and I summarized that with county has contracted with Vision Technologies to provide the roadmap, recommendations, and ongoing support to improve technology capabilities and user experiences for all users, which includes council meeting space within the county government center. And then, you know, there's a bunch of other stuff here that I highlighted that's in the RFP that basically says, In my summary, Information Services Division is required to ensure suitability and compliance for all technology and technology-related capabilities. You've heard some of this. Planned and implemented by and for the county. This includes adherence to protocols and procedures, strategic and tactical planning, available and planned network capacity, and network information security and infrastructure standards. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that I think that, and again, I'm not on site here. I have seen some of you now for the very first time. So I'm speaking generally in the sense that we have the ability to implement technology. We just need to work together with you and your support staff to make sure that you know how to use the technology. And then we would also say, give us the opportunity, because I don't know if you know this, but part of our contract is to ensure that we have people available for overtime and we pay them overtime. And there's somebody sitting upstairs right now who is monitoring to make sure that this video is making it to YouTube. So we have staff available to bring people in and to do the things that I think you're seeking, taking away the subjective things like, but more reliability and better microphones and better cameras and things like that. So
What I don't understand is this RFP is like a year and a half out. We have a technology council team, right? That has been meeting to discuss these issues. What I don't understand is why you weren't part of this conversation before. And that's no fault of your own. I mean, we got to invite each other, but like, wow, this is a breakdown in communication. This could have been solved like a while ago.
Before we get carried, are you done? Because I know other
I
people.
can be done,
Okay.
yes, I can.
I want to defer.
Wow.
I want to defer at this point to Mr. Giovanni because we all just got slapped in the face and told we have stuff we didn't know we had.
Yeah.
From Mr. G.
is that,
We were not aware that this was all was here.
That's a fair assessment, correct?
Yeah, there are several options that can be used. I mean, again, it goes into how.
You have to be at the mic.
You also have to state your name for the record.
Hi, sorry, Robert Mace, IT Director here at Northampton County. There are several options that can be used. We've explored Teams, we've explored Zoom. Early on, Zoom, the adoption of that was just, it was speed at the beginning of the pandemic, so there were a lot of concerns with that. So all in all, I think it's been stated that this is scheduled for upgrade 2024. It's a matter of taking that annual refresh budget that's for video conferencing. Most of it has been allocated to courts. We had failing hardware and we need to upgrade those systems. So there's 10 courtrooms, so you can imagine that that doesn't go very far, yeah. So the one real lacking thing, and this goes into the training, and it's something I can work with your staff on, is the council that you see on the streamed meetings or the recordings is one thing that is not available yet on a live Zoom meeting. That's because the camera that handles that is not tied in to the actual system that is here. So this is really just for the sound system and to display on the screens.
Right, you just need
So
more
that's,
technology.
yeah, that's one of the shortcomings. That's one of the shortfalls.
Okay.
I get, before, yes, just one, I'm going to ask just one question, and I'm going to defer to these guys. What we put as RFP, can you implement that?
Sure, yes.
That's what they said.
Son of a bitch. Your turn, Mr. Giovanni.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
Let's
reason
just go with
to
it.
discuss this
All right.
anymore.
Good, Mr. G.
Bob, how you doing, you know? But Bob, you know that before we started all this stuff, we had you in the council office and we talked about this before we even set the RFP out. Am I correct?
I don't recall before the RFP went out, no.
Me, you and Steve Barron, it was sitting next to Eileen's desk, Eileen, we were sitting and talking about what we wanted to do to this room.
Yeah, it's all doable. Yeah, there's
Well, I
no problem with
understand
that.
that, but I mean, we did talk to you about it before we even did anything.
I don't recall that conversation or even how long ago that was. If it was a year and a half ago, somebody said they started talking about it, that's quite some time ago.
We just need to have the conversation again.
Mr. Goffredo.
Can we just table this?
Sorry, Mr. Goffredo.
Mr. Alexander, these questions are for you. mostly. It seems like we're paying for all these services and technology and abilities, and we didn't even know we had it. It's like we're paying for color TV and you're watching us watch it in black and white and nobody's saying anything. We call meetings on the phone and there's like a 4-second delay. It's a disaster. You have a guy upstairs watching these meetings and nobody said, hey, these meetings are really, really bad. The camera technology looks like it's from 1985. We can't hear anybody on the phone. People forget to put their microphones on. It's like, we put this out because we're frustrated. We think we can put out a better meeting, more transparency to the people. And you guys are mad at us? We're not mad, but you're coming to us like you guys didn't know? Of course we didn't know. We're not here 40 hours a week. I'm a little disappointed that if we're paying for all these services, bells and whistles, why don't we have it?
Well, part of the answer to that is that some of what you're looking for is in the budget for the coming year.
Okay, well.
So we don't have all the bells and whistles yet.
Can you tell me what's in the budget? What did you price up to the county so they can form their budget? What are we getting? Are we getting connected cameras? Are we gonna be able to see if Mr. Giovanni's absent, the screen of the Zoom meeting so I can see him talking and it's not just this crackly, muffled voice? Like, it's 2023. We have technology available. Let's start using it. I'm a little disappointed because this is all a breakdown of communication and it's like it's on purpose to make us look like idiots up here.
Well,
Yes, this is disappointing, very disappointed.
so let me clarify, we are not involved in the county budget. We have an existing contract for IT support
How
services.
did he put a line item in for new microphones and new cameras if he has no idea what it's gonna cost?
Well, because our IT team
Well, Mr. Barron's
provides,
gonna answer that question, I guess, for me.
The answer to the question is I get the information from Bob, I review it, he looks at the market, and I put it in the budget. They're not involved in the budget process. That's
Do we
me.
have a real, actual plan of what is going, or do we just have we're gonna spend $25,000, it's a ballpark? Or do we have we have a scope of work that Bob correlated with vision to get a rough idea what this is gonna be?
I said to Bob, we need to get new cameras in the county council meeting room, and we need to make sure that they have all the integrations they need. Okay, this is what the refresh budget would look like for audiovisual. You have the 10 courtrooms this year, like he just said. This is what you need to put in the budget, and that is a number that's in the budget. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we just need to.
Mr. Heckman,
The old
before I go
guy,
to Mr.
the old
Lawyer,
guy, the old
I am just like, I'm floored. Go ahead.
The nasty guy. Thank you, Mr. Alexander, for coming up. And Bob's helped me many times with the computer, and I appreciate that over the years. And so I thank God, I don't want to talk about the contracts or this or that. You're talking about technology, which I appreciate because that's your function. Both of you know more than anybody in this room. I mean, I had a Commodore 64, so I could say I'm an expert too. But the fact of the matter is, Bob actually answered. You said when Ms. Zirinsky was asking you, you already have the technology. Now, I serve on boards and authorities, and during COVID, what would happen, and even to this day, now, we should be here in person. I admit that. We have an obligation. Sometimes it doesn't work, but people come in, or you may be away for something, a family problem, and a lot of the TV screens like we have here. And on those boards and authorities during COVID, and even to this day, people that aren't there, or a vendor or somebody, they have multiple screens within the screen itself. And everybody who's on the Zoom call or meeting can participate and go back and forth. The chair obviously runs and says, you know, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so wants to speak. And you're right, you know, I mean, in the microphone, you know, as far as muting, like not turning on the mic's my fault. I hit the button, I turn off the button, and I screw up. And I'm often, you know, called on that, and fairly, I should say. But the thing is, but then Bob so I'm wondering, can we, I got the impression from you, we could do that now, but Bob, I got the impression when you spoke, that's something we could do, and it's possibly budgeted, but we couldn't do that right now. We couldn't have 5 council members on individual screens within that big screen interacting right now, could we?
You could with the current technology, but they would not be able to see the room itself because there's no camera to push that video out to the
But
meeting.
wouldn't they be able to see it through the camera?
No, that camera is a separate system.
All right.
That is only for the streaming.
So we would need and I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't want to cut in. If we would need a separate camera then to have that closed system, would that be fair?
Yeah, there would be an additional camera added.
Okay.
Replacement for this and an additional to facilitate the meeting.
All right, and so then the idea then too, as Mr. Barron mentioned, the security. And there's no one up here that wants to jeopardize county security, I mean, for God's sake. Sometimes I just scratch my head when I hear stuff. It's like, you want to throw the orphans out in the street, but I'm going to protect them. It's like, stop it. Is there a way we can do this without compromising the security of the county? I mean, couldn't this be a separate, within your system, this could be isolated where, for example, on an authority I'm on, there's a lot of money stuff goes on in this and that. I have yet to hear a concern about, well, they can get into our system now and look at our books and things like that. Now, if that's the case, well, then no, we couldn't do it. We shouldn't do it. But I have trouble thinking that that's a problem that can't be solved because so many other entities do it.
No, it can be solved.
So we can get around the security.
Well, not get around the security.
Don't get around security.
We can solve the.
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry. We can adapt. I'm a simple person. We can solve the security problem.
Let me summarize. So first of all, I don't think that there's a concept that anybody on council is trying to marginalize the security that the IT team has put in place.
No, you haven't expressed that. That comes from other places.
Right. What the concern is that if you're bringing in a separate contractor that essentially conflicts with what we do, then you have a potential of another party inadvertently doing something, right? In an existing closed system. No, but to your point, no, absolutely, what you're looking to do, but it's a conversation, it's training, right? And figuring out how to make the things work that you want them to work. The multiple people on the screen with the talking back and forth, it's technology. It's not always easy, but it's doable.
Okay.
Right? And I think that part of the reason I'm here today and why Bob is here, sorry, Bob, is because, we want to express to you that we believe that the capability set, aside from some things that you have in the RFP, which are the control mechanisms and things that would be new, that could be extra, okay? And having a proctor or administrator that is down here actually running the meeting, those kinds of things would be extra because we don't have that person on our contract today, right? So those are things to set aside, but by and large, what you have in this RFP are things that we essentially already do, or that in some way come into conflict with what we do in terms of how they would interface with existing systems, right? So, and.
Yeah, and I'm going to cut you off. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, yeah, I don't need, in deference to the ordinance, I'm fine with you doing everything. Till tonight, I was a bit unaware of certain things. And I appreciate the clarification. That's not anything to do. Bob's always answered every question I've ever asked him, so there's no problem there. I have no problem with what you're saying. And I think it comes down to something I started with earlier, which is if we wanted to do these things, there's a cost for everything. So we would probably, with you, we'd have to amend the contract. Of course, the administration would have to be amenable to that, and that's a whole other discussion. But the question that I have, and we could find the money, there's a budget, we're going to be going through it, there's money to be had in that budget. So the thing is, you could make all of this happen that we're talking about. You could do it, your firm, but there'd be a cost.
Right. Let me qualify this too. So it was said earlier that Vision could bid on this RFP. We would not bid on this RFP because it's, number one, we can't because it conflicts with our existing contract. So yes, we have other business units that do studio work. I'm not saying that this is studio, but I'm just saying we do AV, we do all that stuff. But we wouldn't be able to bid this because it conflicts with what we have today, first of all. Secondly, The last time I was in front of council, I did graciously say that I would accept any of the money you're willing to give us, certainly. However, I think that by and large, what you're looking for is already existing in the current support contract. There are some things that are in this RFP that fall outside of that we'd want to have a real conversation about to see if it's something that you really actually need, or if it's a matter of training your existing administrative staff to support this group, right? In that way, you're not, you find ways to not absorb that additional cost and to not have to amend our contract or stuff. Like I said, if we want to add people to our contract, fine, but let's have a real conversation about whether or not that's appropriate or not before going down that path.
Okay.
It seems like, that's all right, it seems like it's a lot simpler than when we started this discussion. I don't know, I mean, I'm more or less, I'm happy they're already in the building, already doing the work. And I understand where Mr. Giovanni's coming from because we've had this discussion many times. But I thank you for your clarification, both of you, and I'm done now.
Okay, we're going to let Ms. Farley-Hefner, and then we're going to put this sucker to bed. It's 9 o'clock, go ahead.
Already?
Well, I've patiently waited, thank you. Sir, how long have you been with us? Have you been with us since the origin of our contract? I know Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
He's been here forever, so you
I
both
am
been around.
the original PM.
Okay,
We've met before, actually.
I'm sure, I'm just checking. I guess my concern is, well, I have another question. When's the last time, Mr. Giovanni, that you've had a technology meeting? Because my understanding is that they were happening on a regular basis. When's the last time that we had a meeting?
February?
Of this year?
Yep. That I was involved in.
Okay. So I know that Mr. May said he didn't remember when we started this, but I kind of do. We asked about it during the pandemic. It started with the sound problems. We've asked if we could do it. We were told we could not.
So,
Okay, now I'm not blaming your company, but I'm saying we were told we were not. So I kind of don't understand if we ask something of you, are we allowed to get it? Or do we have to wait and go through the administration? Because this planned 2024 budget, this RFP was written and introduced back in September. It's been thought of and plotted and discussed way before that, and the budget was handed to us on Tuesday. So the fact that you know what's in the budget before we did, this wasn't told to you, correct? Okay, so we're not trying to usurp your authority or your capabilities. I think what we're concerned about is we are the governing body of this county. We are mandated to have visual recordings and do everything in public. We want to make sure that that's done in the best, best way, transparent, efficacy possible,
Sure.
And I hope that we could get out of this he say, she say, who's to blame? Because I think you've heard that it's disheartening. But my concern is that you're not here all the time. If your employee is told, no, they can't have that, and no, they can't do that, then we're not getting the service that this body needs. And it's not us, because we're not asking for fancy mics or fluffy things. We're asking for things to do our job to make sure that the public hears and sees what we're doing, and it's recorded properly, and that there's no interference. So are you saying that we can have that if we ask for it? Or do we have to, are we going to constantly have a roadblock, I guess?
Yeah, I think that you asked for it, and then we have a dialogue about it, right? So I want to say to the point about the budget. So I didn't learn about this RFP until I got a link. Bob sent me a link to it right after it was posted, I guess, was the first time I saw it. And the only reason I have a general idea of what's in the budget is because I'm aware every year there's a hardware refresh. And refresh includes things like microphones, cameras, computers, monitors, all that stuff, right? So I generally know that. So I asked Bob, for this room, in general, what is budgeted? Well, it's cameras, microphones, okay? Monitors, I don't remember what we talked about, but those two things I know are sticking points because hearing and seeing are important, right? As far as what's been asked for in the past relative to the progression of the pandemic, things happened very quickly. And our team was required to make sure that people could work remote, and that was our first priority. Coming back and number one, to be honest with you, I personally had to learn Teams as a function of the pandemic. Implementing that for this body in a bi-directional way, it was challenging, right? Because there were certain expectations, and I said studio before, they're like studio expectations that Teams doesn't really do well. In terms of asking for what you need, I would say ask for it and we have a dialogue. Because I think now you have Zoom, you have a Teams capability. Being able to put multiple faces on screens is a matter of distribution of that Teams signal that you're all getting on your machines and for your screens in front of you to that same place. And then being able to speak back and forth. The place that gets dangerous is if you don't have somebody that's proctoring the meeting that is making sure that people are being muted when they shouldn't be talking. Or I happen to know, for example, someone wants to see the room because we don't have that camera yet, to see the room, so they've got their YouTube open and their mic open. And what you're saying in the room is coming through their YouTube and into their mic through their call. So then you're getting a loop back.
But getting out of the weeds a little bit, I mean, I appreciate my concern is that meetings haven't been held for almost a year, that Mr. Giovanni and our staff worked together. We did ask your staff, and again, do you work for us or do you work for the county, Mr. May? I mean, do you work for the county or for him? Or do you work for both? Who's your boss?
Well, both, actually. I am a Vision Technologies employee. So I'm staffed here at the county.
No, that's exactly what I meant. So, Mr. Giovanni, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Do you, hearing this tonight, do you want to go forward with this, or would you like to amend this proposal? Because obviously, you weren't aware, and we did this ahead of the budget being received, correct? And no one discussed with you upgrades, correct? Prior to the budget?
No.
Okay, so do you want to keep this as it is and make it an RFP? Or would you like to amend it? Because I have an option for an amendment, that we could compel that this continue to be designed and implemented, and that we can change some of the verbiage. And if you don't want to do it tonight, we can table it, and you could present it again next week with some amendments. Because I don't want to throw it away if you still want to vote on it. And I mean, if you still want to go forward with an RFP, I'm not opposed to that. And it's nothing against your company. But you need to understand where we're coming from is that, this gotcha stuff, I think there's a few people up here that are a little done with it. And we're not blaming you for that. But how would you like to proceed since this is your suggestion?
We can take back the RFP. I'd rather have Visions do it. But like we were told before, they can't do it. So.
Several times, correct?
Several times.
So if you would like to
Then we're
amend
getting a
it to
different
compel
story
this to
tonight.
be completed, because again, you're telling us it can be done and then it could be forgotten, or it could be kicked down the can, like, it has to get
Well,
done.
That's right.
So I'm saying it can be done, but we need to understand what it is, right? Because it's not.
Well, that means that's going back to him and our staff who had originally been part of the team, and I don't know why the meetings aren't happening, but that's up to all of you, and they were our designees, so I would ask that you collaborate with them, but that's, Mr. President, it's
All
on
right,
you.
before we go any further, are you going to amend this RFP?
Did you want to table?
Or you want to table it? You want it to go away, the RFP?
We could,
I want to make a motion to table this RFP.
Well,
Motion and a second.
okay. I was just trying to get an answer. Wow. I would just like to make sure that all parties need to get together. I'll shut up. Go ahead. Call for the vote.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Yes. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0.
We can't talk about anything else. We're going to move on to the next thing.
Mr.
I got
Gofredo?
one question, real short.
Yes, sir.
We can't talk about it. We tabled it.
No, has nothing to,
Okay.
me or Mr. Giovanni send you an email, give you a general idea. We're doing budget amendments soon, so if what Mr. Barron allotted for what we would desire in this room not to be sufficient and you were to suggest it to be more, we would have information then to be able to go to a budget amendment with more money.
Certainly.
So if we give you information, what we'd be looking for, talking to our council, and we email back and forth, do you think that'd be a sufficient way of getting this answered?
I think that would be a fabulous new beginning.
Thank you for coming here tonight.
I think what you're saying, that has to go through our staff and Mr. G being our contact person. Let's make sure we got it correct. Okay. We're good with that? All right. Is there any other old business to discuss? New business? No new business. Council committee reports. You had one today. Your mic.
I would like to utilize the technology in the room, thank you. Yeah. No. We had a Economic Development Committee meeting today. We had a presentation by Kim Schaefer, the Executive Director of Community Bike Works. She gave us this wonderful, colorful print so you can fill yourself in on it. They have lots of grants coming in. They're coming to 921 Spruce Street in Easton
Yes.
real soon. The other update was from our Northampton County Housing Authority, and Gwendolyn indicated to us that they're going to reopen the Northampton County Housing Development Corporation. This is going to be something that is going to allow for one person from the county on the board, 3 from the Housing Authority Board, and obviously a 5th person member, the executive director. And this will allow this 501c3 to evaluate properties that we might be able to own, rent for low-income properties, or to expand whatever we're doing in our current housing authority in Northampton County. And that's it.
Anybody else have a committee report? Council liaison?
I have 2.
Okay.
First, the CJAB met on Monday last week, September 25th, and we heard a presentation from the Victims Advocacy Program. And then next, CCAP did hold in conjunction with St. Luke's, the Mental Health Summit on the 22nd. 2 of my colleagues were able to be present, and I appreciate that. I think it was a well-done presentation, and I like that there was equal representation of legislators, commissioners, and mental health professionals. I did hear today that in the House, they did codify and they added the $100 million back to the budget. So we need to reach out to our state senators to see if they could please hold that. But I appreciate all the efforts that people did. And pay attention, because some of your CCAP committees, I think, are meeting now prior to our November meeting to do your legislative updates for next year. That's it for me.
Anybody else? Council clerk?
Nothing. Oh, except the budget hearings start next Tuesday at 4:30. It'll be general government. Sorry. Wednesday, October 11th, 4:30, general government.
4:30, Wednesday.
Bring your books because we don't have extras.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Solicitor?
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved, Secretary.
We're out of here.